Every morning, before the sun even touched the sky, Zina was already awake. Wrapped in her old kaitinge cloth, she stepped barefoot into the cold courtyard of her in-laws' home in Kacinda town. The ground was rough, but she didn't complain. She went straight to the kitchen where her day always began, grinding spices with her hands, chopping onions that stung her eyes, stirring big pots of food while smoke rose around her like a silent cloud. She cooked for everyone, her husband's parents, his sisters, brothers, cousins, and even the house girl. No one ever said thank you. They just ate and moved on like it was expected. Zina would wipe sweat from her forehead, smile politely and keep going. Inside her heart it hurt, not just the hard work but the feeling that she was invisible. No one saw how tired she was. No one asked if she had dreams too. Every bite they took was made from her quiet sacrifice. But still she showed up every day because that's what a good wife was supposed to do. Even if no one noticed her, even if her name was never mentioned, Zina was always there, in the morning smoke. For 5 long years, Zina cooked every single day without missing a single meal. Not once. Morning, afternoon, and evening, she was in that smoky kitchen, sweating over hot pots and burning firewood. She cooked for 11 people. Her husband's parents, his 2 sisters, his 3 brothers, 2 cousins who lived with them, the house girl, and of course her husband Chuma. She never complained. She just kept moving from one task to the next, peeling, washing, stirring, tasting, serving. It didn't matter if she was tired, sick, or even silently crying. The food had to be ready. And when visitors came to the house, Zina would quietly serve them 2 clean plates, fresh juice, warm smiles. But every time they looked around and admired the tidy compound, the organized household, the beautiful meals on the table, they didn't say her name. No one saw her behind the scenes. Instead, they would smile and say, "What a good home Chuma's mother has made. She raised such a well-managed house." Zina would hear those words from the corner of the kitchen, standing behind the curtain, wiping her hands on her wrapper, heart sinking a little more. All the work she did, day and night, wasn't seen as hers. It was credited to someone else. Her hands made the food, but someone else got the praise. Her back carried the weight of the home, but her name was never spoken. Sometimes she would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering, what am I even doing here? Who sees me? Who values me? But the next morning, she would get up again, before sunrise, before anyone else, and start all over. She didn't do it for recognition. She did it because it had to be done. But deep inside, a quiet ache was growing, whispering to her, "You are more than just someone's cook. You were meant for more." Zina had learned to smile through pain, but some words cut deeper than a knife. Every time her mother-in-law, Mama Awilo, opened her mouth, Zina braced herself. The woman never missed a chance to remind her of the one thing she hadn't been able to do: have a child. A woman who can't birth children should at least be useful in the kitchen, Mama Awilo would say loudly, usually while Zina was standing right there, stirring a boiling pot of stew or pounding yam with aching arms. Zina would keep her eyes down, pretending not to hear, but her heart would twist painfully in her chest. She wanted to scream, to cry, to say, "I've tried. I've prayed. I've hoped." But she didn't. She would blink back the tears and keep stirring, letting the steam from the pot mix with the heat on her face. Every time those words were thrown at her, something inside her cracked just a little more. She had once dreamed of a warm, loving family. She had pictured herself as a mother, chasing little feet around the compound, singing lullabies, packing school lunches. But 5 years had passed, and no baby had come. Instead, all she had was judgment, cold looks from the aunties, whispered gossip from the cousins, and Mama Awilo's cruel reminders that she was less of a woman. No one ever asked how she felt. No one sat with her to comfort her. To them, she was just the wife who hadn't delivered. But still, every day, she woke up and served them with trembling hands and a breaking heart. She cooked their meals, washed their clothes, smiled when she had to, and cried in silence when no one was looking. She didn't want pity. She just wanted someone, anyone, to say, "Zina, you matter." But in that house filled with noise and people, Zina felt more alone than ever. Before she became the silent cook in her in-laws' home, Zina was a rising star in Latalo City. People used to call her Chef Z, and her dishes were known across the neighborhood. Her jollof rice could make you cry. Her grilled fish, perfectly spiced, brought strangers back for more. She had dreams, big ones. She wanted to open her own restaurant, A cozy place with music, laughter and flavors from all over Africa. She had even started saving. She was almost there. Then Chuma came into her life. Sweet, charming and full of promises. He told her he loved her food, loved her heart, loved her dreams. When he proposed, he said, "Come with me to Kasinda. Let's build a life together. Once things settle, you can open your restaurant." And she believed him. She left the city, left her job, packed up her dreams and followed him. But in Kasinda, life didn't settle. Instead, it got harder. Chuma's family expected her to become the unpaid house cook. Day after day, she worked from morning till night, feeding everyone except herself, her spirit, her dream, her joy. Whenever she asked him about their plans, he would say, "Later, when the time is right." But the right time never came. 5 years passed like a blur. Her knives grew dull. Her notebooks filled with recipes gathered dust. No restaurant. No kitchen of her own. Just the same smoky corner in the back of the compound, where she cooked for people who never asked her what she truly wanted. Zina stayed quiet, but inside, disappointment was building like a storm. She had traded her future for love, and been left with chores and broken promises. Sometimes, late at night, she would stare at the old photos on her phone, smiling selfies from her cooking classes, screenshots of menu ideas, messages from friends in Latalo asking, "When are you opening your place?" She had no answers. Only silence, regret, and the haunting thought that maybe, just maybe, she had trusted the wrong man with the right dream. That Sunday morning felt different. Zina woke up before the rooster crowed, but this time her heart wasn't heavy. It was calm, the kind of calm that comes when a decision is final. She tied her wrapper tightly, washed her hands slowly, and began to cook like she used to back in Lutalo, not for obligation but from her soul. She poured her heart into every dish. Soft pounded yam, tender goat meat simmered in spicy stew, slippery okra cooked just right, sweet fried plantains, and chilled hibiscus juice with slices of lime. The smells filled the air and drifted through the compound, drawing everyone to the table like bees to honey. They came in as always, laughing, chatting, and ready to eat. Her husband, his siblings, the house girl Mama Awilo, all sat down without saying thank you as usual. But today Zina didn't care. She smiled softly and watched them from the doorway. Because today's meal was not just food, it was her goodbye. Each plate had something extra. A small white envelope placed carefully beside the spoon. As they opened them, the laughter died down. One by one, they began to read in silence. Inside, Zina had written, "Dear family, thank you for the years. I am leaving today, not in anger but in peace. You may finish your meal. I won't be returning." There were gasps. Forks paused midair. Her husband looked up, confused. "Zina, what is this? Where are you going with nothing?" She was already walking toward the gate, where a small taxi was waiting, engine running. Without turning back, she said, "I had nothing when I came here. That's how I know I'll be fine." And just like that, she walked away, leaving behind the kitchen, the chores, the silence, the tears, and a family stunned by the taste of a meal they would never forget. It wasn't just food. It was freedom served hot. Each person at the table thought the envelope next to their plate was maybe a gift, or a joke, or some strange announcement. They opened them slowly, one by one, expecting something small and unimportant. But the words inside made their hands freeze and their faces go pale. "Dear family, thank you for the years. I am leaving today, not in anger but in peace. You may finish your meal. I won't be returning." That was all it said. Simple, calm, but it hit like thunder. Mama Awilo's eyes scanned the note again and again, as if more words would appear. Chuma's jaw dropped, his spoon halfway to his mouth. The younger siblings looked around in shock, their food suddenly tasteless. Nobody could believe what they were reading. Zina, the woman who had quietly served them for 5 long years, was saying goodbye just like that. No screaming, no argument, no drama. Just a calm goodbye written on paper and served beside their favorite meal. Chuma stood up, his voice shaking. "Zina, what do you mean by this? Where will you even go?" But she was already outside, her small travel bag in one hand, her sandals in the other. The taxi driver waited patiently beside her, engine humming like a quiet drumbeat of change. Zina looked back only once. "I came here with nothing," she said gently. "That's how I know I'll be just fine." And with that, she got into the taxi and closed the door. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with a peace that no one could understand. She had finally fed herself something they never gave her. A taste of freedom. Back inside the house, the plates remained full, the envelope still open, and the air thick with silence. For the first time they noticed what it felt like without her, and it was empty. Gasps filled the room like cold wind. The family sat frozen, their forks in midair, mouths slightly open, unsure if they had read the notes correctly. Mama Awilo clutched her chest, blinking fast. Chuma looked around in panic, then dropped his fork with a loud clatter. "Zina!" he called out, standing suddenly. "Where will you go with nothing? You have nothing." But Zina didn't stop walking. She was already at the door, her small bag in hand. Her wrapper was neat, her head held high. For once she didn't feel small in that house. She didn't feel like the forgotten cook, the woman without a child, the one they talked over and never listened to. Today she felt free. Just as she reached the front gate, she paused and turned her head slightly, her voice calm but clear. "I had nothing when I came here. That's how I know I'll be fine." The words hung in the air like a bell after it's been struck, sharp, strong and unforgettable. The taxi door opened, and she stepped in without hesitation. The driver gave her a small nod, as if he already knew this wasn't just a ride. It was a new beginning. Back inside, no one moved. No one spoke. The food on their plates suddenly looked ordinary, even though it had been prepared with the same love and care Zina had always given. But today it tasted different. Tasted like goodbye. Chuma stood there, speechless. For 5 years he thought she would always stay. That she would keep cooking, keep serving, keep waiting for a dream he never planned to help her chase. But she was gone now, not because she was angry, but because she finally chose herself. And just like that, Zina disappeared down the dusty road. Not with noise, not with tears, but with quiet strength. Her story didn't end at that table, it was just beginning. While her in-laws thought she was just the quiet, childless woman in the kitchen, Zina was secretly building something beautiful, far away from their eyes, far away from their judgment. In the early mornings before anyone else woke up, and late at night after everyone had eaten and gone to bed, Zina would sneak out her old phone and post photos of her pastries online. Under the name Z's Bites, she shared simple recipes, sweet treats, and warm stories from her tiny corner of the kitchen. She never used her real name or face. It wasn't safe. In that house, even dreaming out loud was a crime. But on the internet, she was free. Free to bake, free to write, free to be seen. Her honey buns, coconut puff puffs, and peanut cakes started getting attention. People loved the way she made simple food feel like comfort and magic at the same time. Her page grew, slowly but surely. Strangers sent her messages like, "You made my day better," and "Your food reminds me of my mother." One day, she got a message that made her heart stop. A man named Idrissa from Senegal, a well-known food investor, wrote to her. He had been following Z's Bites quietly for months. "You have something special," he said. "Do you have a kitchen of your own?" Zina's fingers trembled as she typed back. She told him the truth. No restaurant, no support, just borrowed firewood and a crowded compound. Idrissa didn't hesitate. He offered to help her start her own business, mentorship, funding, and even a spot in a women's culinary incubator in Makura City. It felt unreal. For once, someone saw her not as a failure, but as a creator. Zina didn't tell anyone. Not even Chuma. She kept her joy tucked deep in her heart, like a flame she refused to let them blow out. While they ignored her, she quietly built a future. And now, as she sat in that taxi heading away from everything she knew, she whispered to herself, "It's time." The food Zina cooked that Sunday wasn't just a meal. It was her goodbye, served warm and full of meaning. Every bite told a story. The pounded yam was soft and smooth, the goat stew rich with layers of spice, the okra silky, the plantains golden and sweet, and the hibiscus juice chilled just right with slices of orange floating gently on top. It was the kind of food that made people close their eyes while chewing. But this time it wasn't about impressing anyone. It wasn't about duty. It was a farewell, cooked with calm hands and a heart finally letting go. She cooked quietly with no anger, no tears, just a strange peace she hadn't felt in years. Every stir of the pot, every sprinkle of salt, felt like a step closer to freedom. She knew this would be the last time she cooked for them. And this time it was on her own terms. After they opened the envelopes and the room fell into silence, Zena slipped away. But before walking out of that house forever, she folded her old kitchen apron neatly and placed it on the table beside the empty pots. Then she left a small handwritten note, short but sharp, placed gently on top. It read, "Respect is not seasoning. I can't cook in bitterness anymore." No one said a word. They all just stared at the apron. The same one she had worn every single day for 5 years. The same one stained with stew oil and silent tears. But now it lay still and clean like a flag of surrender. Or maybe a flag of freedom. For Zena, that final meal wasn't just food. It was closure. She wasn't walking away hungry. She had fed herself something far greater. The courage to stop pouring love into people who didn't see her. That kitchen had taken so much from her. Time, energy, dreams. But this last meal gave something back. It gave her wings. As the old bus pulled out of Casinda town, Zena sat by the window, her small bag on her lap and the soft morning breeze brushing her face. For the first time in 5 years, she wasn't rushing to boil water or grind spices. She wasn't listening for anyone calling her name. No one expected her to cook, clean, or smile when her heart was breaking. It was just her now, just Zena, her dreams, and the road ahead. She was on her way to Makura City, a busy place she had only heard about in passing conversations and late-night radio shows. But it wasn't just the city calling her. It was the opportunity waiting there. A spot had opened for her at a women's culinary incubator, a program that trained and supported women with food businesses. She had been accepted quietly, after months of online chats and secret hopes. Now it was real. Zena looked out the window, watching the dusty trees pass by like old memories. She thought about the years she had spent feeding everyone but herself, feeding them meals, feeding them love, feeding them patience. But her own dream? It had been starving in silence. Not anymore. With each mile she felt lighter, like she had shed the heavy layers of judgment, expectation, and broken promises. She didn't know what Makura would bring. Success, struggles, surprises, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that she had chosen herself. In her bag, she carried a notebook filled with recipes, drawings of her dream kitchen, and the name Z's Hearth written in big bold letters across the front page. That's what she was going to build. A place that felt like warmth, love, and healing. As the bus rolled into Makura City, Zena smiled quietly to herself. This was the first day she wasn't someone's wife, someone's daughter-in-law, someone's helper. Today she was just Zena, a woman finally free, finally seen, and finally ready to feed the world without losing herself. It didn't take long for the world to notice Zena. Within just a few months of arriving in Makura City, something magical began to happen. She worked hard at the women's culinary incubator, soaking up every lesson, showing up early and staying late. She cooked with passion, with purpose, and this time with her full name proudly written on every label. Zena Chisomo, founder of Z's Hearth. No more hiding behind an alias. No more cooking in the shadows. Her restaurant was small at first, just a cozy corner in a shared kitchen space with 3 wooden tables and colorful curtains. But the food? The food told her story. Every dish was a piece of her journey. From sweet coconut buns that reminded her of quiet mornings in Casinda to rich goat stew with a twist of Makura spices. People didn't just come to eat. They came to feel. Word spread fast. One customer posted about her on social media. She left a life of silent service to cook for herself, and now she's feeding the city. That post went viral. Then came interviews, articles, food bloggers, and even a short video feature titled, "The Woman Who Served Everyone But Herself." Until now, people started calling her Mama Z, a name that felt like love and power all at once. She wasn't just a chef now. She was a symbol of what it meant to rise after being pushed down. Women came to her restaurant not just for the food but for hope. Men came to say, "My wife showed me your story." Even little girls came and hugged her legs, saying they wanted to cook like her someday. Zena had once been the invisible woman in the back of the house. Now her name was on signs, menus, and people's hearts. Z's Hearth wasn't just a restaurant. It was proof that when a woman chooses herself, she doesn't just survive, she shines. And Zena? She was shining brighter than ever. The day of the interview, Zena wore a simple dress and her favorite apron with Z's Hearth stitched across the front. The restaurant was full, the smell of baked pastries and spicy stew floating through the air. Customers were chatting, waiters moving around with warm plates, but in one corner, a small camera was set up. A young journalist had come to tell her story to the world. Not just about her food but about her journey. The interview started with light questions, her recipes, her inspirations, her future plans. Zena answered with grace, smiling gently, her voice calm and confident. But then the journalist leaned forward and asked, "If you could say one thing to your in-laws today, the people you cooked for, served for, cried for, what would it be?" Zena paused for a moment, her eyes soft but full of strength. She looked into the camera and said, "Tell them I finally cooked something for myself, and it tastes like freedom." That one sentence broke the internet. The video clip spread like wildfire. People across the continent shared it with captions like, "This is healing," and "The strength in her calm is everything." Women messaged her saying, "Thank you for speaking for all of us." Men wrote in saying they were rethinking how they treated their wives. The world saw not just a chef, but a woman who had turned pain into purpose. Zena didn't cry during the interview. She didn't speak with bitterness. She wasn't angry. She was simply free. And that freedom spoke louder than any scream. Later that night, when the restaurant had closed and the lights were dim, Zena sat alone at a table, sipping her hibiscus juice. She rewatched the clip and smiled to herself. That one sentence was more than just words, it was a full circle. She had spent years feeding others while starving inside. But now, finally, she had served herself the most beautiful dish of all, peace. It had been months since Zena left Casinda. Months since she packed her dreams, her pain, and her courage into one small bag and walked away. In that time, she had become someone new. Or maybe someone she had always been but was never allowed to be. Z's Hearth was now one of the most talked about spots in Makura City, and Mama Z was no longer just a name, she was a movement. One quiet afternoon, the restaurant doors opened and in walked someone she hadn't seen since that Sunday meal, Chuma. He looked different, tired, unsure. He stood in the doorway like a man visiting a place he had no right to be. Zena saw him from across the room. Her heart didn't race, her hands didn't shake. She simply wiped them on her apron and walked toward him. "Zena," he said softly, almost nervously, "can we talk?" She looked at him for a long moment, then calmly walked to the counter, poured him a glass of water, and placed it in front of him. Then she looked him straight in the eyes and said, "Talking was free for 5 years. Now you'll need a reservation." Her voice was steady. Not rude. Not cold. Just firm. Final. Chuma opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. Around them the restaurant buzzed with life, laughter, music, sizzling pans. All things Zena had built without him. He looked down at the glass of water, then slowly stood up. He nodded once, awkwardly, and turned to leave. Zena watched him walk out, not with anger, not with regret, but with a quiet sense of peace. That door had closed a long time ago. She didn't need answers anymore. She didn't need apologies. She had spent 5 years waiting to be seen. Now the whole world saw her. And more importantly, she saw herself. And in that simple moment, surrounded by the scent of fresh bread and the warmth of her own kitchen, she smiled. She had finally become the woman she once prayed to be. Zena could have stopped at the restaurant. She could have enjoyed the success, the fame, the steady line of customers at Z's Hearth. But she remembered what it felt like to be stuck in someone else's kitchen, invisible, overworked, and unheard. She remembered the long nights crying quietly while chopping onions, and the days her dreams felt too far to reach. So she made a decision. Her story wasn't just for her. It had to mean something more. She used part of her restaurant earnings and the support of donors who believed in her to open Z's Table, a culinary school specially created for women like her. Abandoned wives, widows, and women who had been told they were just cooks and nothing more. Zena wanted them to know that their hands, which had been used only to serve others, could also build futures. The school was warm and welcoming with colorful curtains, open fire stoves, and laughter in every corner. Women from different towns came with their babies on their backs and hope in their hearts. They learned how to cook professionally, how to start food businesses, and more importantly, how to believe in themselves again. On the front wall of the school, Zena painted her motto in big bold letters. "If you can cook for others, you can cook up your own destiny." Every time a new student walked in and read those words, something lit up in their eyes, the same light Zena had once found in herself. She taught them recipes, yes, but she also taught them self-worth, courage, and independence. People began calling the place a healing kitchen, and that's exactly what it became. Women who once thought their lives were over found fresh beginnings behind those stoves. Zena didn't just teach them how to make food. She reminded them that they were more than leftovers, that they mattered, that they could rise just like she did. And in every smile, every success story, and every apron tied with pride, Zena's legacy lived on, far beyond the pot. Zena's cookbook flew off shelves across the continent. It wasn't just the recipes that made it special. It was the story woven between the pages. Each dish came with a piece of her journey, the pain, the healing, the rising. But it was the last page that made readers cry. The final recipe had no ingredients, no measurements, no instructions on how long to boil or when to stir. Instead, there was a handwritten note in Zena's elegant script: serve yourself first. Let love, not obligation, season your life. Simple words, but powerful. They carried the weight of everything she had been through: years of giving, of being overlooked, of cooking in silence while starving inside. Now she was feeding herself first. Her soul, her joy, her dreams. And just below the note was a full-page photograph. Zena standing proudly in her kitchen. Her apron was tied neatly around her waist. Her smile was bright and free, no longer tired or forced. And in her hand were the golden keys, not to someone else's home, but to her very own kitchen, her very own life. It wasn't just a cookbook. It was a love letter to every woman who had ever been told she was only good for cooking and cleaning. Zena had flipped the script. She didn't just teach them how to feed others. She taught them how to finally feed themselves. And that was the final recipe.